Hello, my fellow artists. I've resolved to do more of these videos, even if they're short, and that's what this one's going to be. But I did want to show you something that I just thought of as I'm working on this painting. Obviously, a sunset it's on the coast of South Carolina with some nice palm trees, palmettos. People call them. I don't remember the actual technical name. Anyway, it doesn't matter. You can see that this is the photo I'm working from. I've changed the format. This one's kind of square, but actually a little bit vertical format. And I've just, without measuring or anything, nothing formal, I just decided to kind of expand that into this and just played with the spacing of things. I tried to not get the spacing of any two trees quite the same as any other two trees, and that just every one is a slightly different measurement, with obviously that one being the kind of focal point where your eye wants to travel down in there. And eventually I'm going to have a strand of lights in here and a woman standing against one of the palm trees. I'm not quite sure where I'm going to have her, but that's the overall plan. But as I was doing these things, I was realizing that it's not intuitive the way to do these palm trees with this colorful sunset scene behind it, because in a way the sunset itself is kind of the subject. The figure in this one is going to be a little bit of a well, it's going to take second stage to the sunset itself, and I'm hoping to make her kind of disappear in importance a little bit compared to the sunset colors. So, what was I saying? Oh, so in handling this, okay, it seems to me that the intuitive way to do it would be to paint the entire sunset and then paint the figure and the figures of the palm trees in front of that thing. And that would probably be easiest, but it's very rare that, well, it's rare that it works, but in real life, light wraps around things, like it kind of envelops it. And the reason it does that is because there's still air. There's layers of air between us and these things that, in this case, the palm trees. And of course, there's many miles of air behind that. And that's where we're getting most of the light, because the light is shining through and it's kind of bouncing around, in the moisture in the air, and everything is kind of taking up this light. It's not just coming from the sun itself. In fact, in this one, it's not coming from the sun at all. Well, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's no sun in the picture. Like, the sun is behind the horizon. It's down below. And so all the light we're getting is in this scene is actually from the air itself, or, well, it's obviously from the sun, but the sun is bouncing off the particles and the molecules of air and of water in the air. So, long story short, so we're getting that light coming from the sky itself, from the air, and then that air continues to wrap around. In other words, we've got some air between us and the subjects there. So that's just kind of a long way of explaining why, when we see a dark thing in front of a light sky, like especially like this, where it's kind of ambient and coming from all directions, that light that's back there continues to envelop what's in front of it, because these aren't in front of it really, they're in it. Does that make sense? So it's like if you place these in a very slightly milky fish tank. So in the middle, not just on the surface of it. So there's not a sharp contrast between the palm trees, or the subject, any subject, and that background. So you want a little bit of a transition. On a very minuscule level, it actually kind of creates almost a rainbow effect, but it's on such a small level that we don't really see that. But having that in mind, we can kind of take advantage of knowing that, and you do see it sometimes. It's just a little bit. It's hard to see when there's so much more contrast and so many more colors that are taking our attention. So we don't really notice these things so much, but as a painter, it helps show the realism in it. It feels more real if we do these things. So finally getting to the point. So I'm going to be painting these palm trees in the figure. They're going to end up, the darkest parts being about this color. It's kind of, the way I mixed it was my dioxazine purple mixed with a little of the alizarin crimson and burnt sienna. So it's kind of a brownish, reddish purple. If you want to just kind of categorize it that way. But in these areas here where, particularly where the trees are, I'm not focusing on the detail right now. I'm working into it. And here's what I'm doing. So I'm getting various mixtures of blue and purple here, and adding a little bit of red, a little bit of burnt sienna, and just kind of dashing it in, trying to get the darkest parts where I'm going to be kind of focusing in on the details of those things. And I'm not going to put detail everywhere, but just dashing it in there where one of the fronds of the palm tree will be eventually. But it's almost like there's a bluish purple haze, a bluish haze, and then a purpler haze, and then a slightly redder haze, and then finally focusing in with the detail with this this purpley reddish brown color that I mentioned before. And the more dense that foliage, the darker it's going to be, obviously. But again, I'm not painting like little details of, and I'm not going to paint little details of every leaf and every piece of the palm tree in every spot. I'm only going to do those in a couple of the spots, probably the darkest, most dense parts, and then in other places I'll just indicate that is still part of the same thing. It's still part of a palm tree. And right now I've got a little bit too much red, so I'm going to just get kind of a light blue just to show you the whole process. So right here, I've just indicated with the dark color where I want the palm tree to be. But I'm going to go over this with this dark blue. It's the same color as the sky behind it, just darker, not as much white in the mixture. So you can see I'm kind of just, kind of doing this one. I'm just using that as my reference to see what a palm tree looks like, more or less. So I'm leaving the interior of the palm tree, the densest part, darker, and showing it kind of fading into the sky around the perimeter. Same thing here. It's a different shape, and these ones right now look a little bit too much like each other for me. So I'm gonna, which one? I'm gonna make that one just a little bit taller, so that has a different personality. So they're not copycats of each other. We don't want identical twins of anything in this. I was going to go into a long explanation of how that comes into effect, or how you should think of that in every painting, but I'll save that for another day. So now that I've put that bluish haze, for lack of a better term, around that, I'm going to make it a little bit more purple. So still blue, but a little bit more red, and a little bit darker. And this is a slightly less hazy and slightly darker indicator of the same places. I'll lightly dash another one in there. So I'm not getting detailed necessarily, but it's a little bit more detailed than before. Now I'm going to reach over to my red and purple. So instead of mixing blue and purple, now I'm mixing red and purple. and I've still got the blue on my brush. So I'm kind of just barely inching it more towards red. And the more detail I get, the more I've got to reference my photograph. Because whereas before it was, I can kind of make up where it's going to be, but now I need to really focus on what they actually look like. But still not a ton of detail. And I realize as I'm doing this, I'm kind of accidentally covering up some parts that I thought were going to be blue, so I'm going to have to go back in there and decide where I want a sharper edge against the background sky versus just this very soft, soft focus, this haze behind it. But I can do that in a minute. And I'll do some more on that particular palm tree, but just to show you, now I'm going to mix this purple with a little bit of brown. Oops, maybe a little bit too much. I know it's fun to look at a palette, but it's not particularly helpful. It really isn't, because unless you know my exact formula, which I don't even know, it's not really going to help you. Because I'm telling you, the basic colors, and you don't even have to use the same colors that I use. I'm just bending it towards a little bit more warm, a little bit more dark. An easier way to say it would be I'm getting further away from the sky color and more towards the local color, but I still want to keep that purpley haze that I decided was going to be my overall color for this. So I've just got these little tiny dashes of this dark color. Some parts will be thicker, heavier than others, because as you can see in the palm tree here, this area is quite dark and quite large, where the other parts are just these little bits of palm frond, kind of scattered. And they're more by themselves. Put a few details. I mean, you don't really need much to show the viewer that this is what it is, that it has a particular texture. And that texture should be saved for the well, no, I was gonna make up a rule, but I don't want to say that, because almost without fail, whenever I say that a thing should happen, there's always a really good reason for not doing that in certain places. So, okay, I'm not going to guarantee that that's a finished palm tree there, but that's about what I want. And I certainly don't want to spend too much time on any particular palm tree. And as I step back a little bit, that particular one, just probably because I was talking about it as I was doing it, and thinking about it as I was going, became a little bit more uniform in color than I really wanted it to. So I might go back in there and just dash it with a few more blues instead of this purple, completely purple that I got. Whereas here you can see the variety of color. There's blues and purples and browns, and then light purples and light blues, and it's just and light browns. I'm not sure if that's quite coming through. It probably doesn't look the way that it really looks in real life, but you can see that there's some difference there, whereas it's a little bit more uniform on this one. So, okay. Whew. A lot of words in a short amount of time, right? Okay, so I am doing this for a gallery that I'm in, Dare Gallery, actually. Well, it goes by a few words. You can check my website if you want to see what the gallery is, Sandpiper gallery. They have 2 different galleries, but their website is there anyway. Long story, but they're in South Carolina, in Charleston, and this is a subject that I don't usually do, meaning landscape. I mean, I do landscape. I don't usually sell it in galleries, but this gallery is kind of working with me. It's fun to bounce ideas back and forth with galleries. That way I'm not just in my own little echo chamber. But I'm doing landscapes of the local scene, but also my figures. So that's why I'm going to put a figure in there. Going to be putting a figure in this one. That's going to be pretty. Probably 2 figures in that one, actually. Some people walking on the beach. I finished this one. The figure is a more prominent point of focus on that one. But that's probably as far as I want to bring it. And you know, he's not any person in particular. He's just a fisherman. So I think that'll be appealing to some people. And then this one over there, where same kind of thing as that one down there, just a figure, somebody, you know, maybe digging clams or something. So anyway, kind of a new adventure for me, approaching this subject in this way. But these types of principles hold true whether I'm painting green trees against a light sky here, or palm trees against a sunset there. So I hope that's helpful to you. Ask me any questions you'd like, and I'll try to get back to you on those in video form. And yeah, as I mentioned in the beginning, I've resolved to do more of these. And I thought that this was going to be a short one. Turns out it's kind of long, but hope I didn't take too much of your time without giving you something in return. I'll talk to you later, though. I'll talk to you pretty soon. Okay, happy painting. Bye.